Welcome into It's Just the Show. I'm your host, Jay Stone, and with me as always is Cory Champney.
Hey.
And you have arrived at episode 20, where we're going to be talking college football playoffs and the Georgia Bulldogs and how they got a first-round bye.
Yeah, the 2024 SEC champions. There's no more East and West. It's just the two teams with the best record in the SEC go up against each other in a battle of epic proportions.
This winter, one time at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the University of Texas meets the University of Georgia on a neutral field.
What will happen when these two teams collide for a second time?
Could it be the first ever SEC overtime championship game?
Could it be a backup quarterback leading a team to victory?
Wow. I tell you what, it was crazy to watch that game. My heart beat out of my chest. I don't think I can do back-to-back games like that ever again. The 8 overtime thriller against Georgia Tech and then the first ever overtime game in SEC championship history.
I don't think you're going to have back-to-back games like that ever again. Well, maybe not ever again, but at least not this season. It was both those games were a perfect roller coaster of emotions, up, down. The Georgia Tech game was more of a comeback story, but we'll get to the SEC championship in a minute. Haynes King, I don't care what people say, he's a real deal. He's a fullback throwing a football.
Haynes King is a warrior. I have nothing but the utmost respect for that young man.
And not to get into the Tech game too much, but Dan Jackson is him.
Oh, yes, sir.
And that man won that game for them there Georgia Bulldogs because the hit that he put on Haynes King knocked the breath out of him. It caused him to drop the football. And do you know that he doesn't fumble the ball that much? I think that was only like his second fumble of the year.
And he runs a lot.
Yeah, he runs a lot, but he protects the ball. But that was one of those things where he was running and, like, you see the close-up and he's running and Dan Jackson's nowhere. And then all of a sudden you just see this red jersey coming out of nowhere like the water boy. And he hits him, like, in the gut, like gut checks him. And then they cut away and you don't know the ball's out until you see a Georgia player coming up with it. And they said, oh, Georgia has the ball. And then you just run into the whole convoluted, messed up overtime sequence that it's like you said, you were here and you were just like, oh, just beat us already. Just put us out of our misery.
I can't take it anymore.
Because that game was like, went to midnight.
It was after midnight.
Yeah, it was after midnight. And it was just like.
That game started on Friday. It was the first game to finish on Saturday.
And it was like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, I'm about to regurgitate all this turkey I just ate.
No kidding. The number 2 team in the country, right now anyway, at the time I think we were 5 or 7 going against unranked Georgia Tech, who had, respectably knocked off Miami, knocked them out of the college football playoff talk.
They played Notre Dame tough.
They sure did.
Without Haynes King. They had Haynes King. I don't know if they would have won, but that game would have been a whole lot closer.
I think it would have as well. But it really showed rivalry weekend got the best of almost everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Ohio State loses to Michigan at home with a far superior team.
Oh, yeah.
Far superior team. But those boys come out to play on rivalry weekend. It just means more that weekend for everybody, like it just means more all the time for the SEC.
And they said something. Clemson and South Carolina. That was a dog fight. That was an upset.
3-point game. And if South Carolina would have been in the conference, that would have really thrown. If they would have been in the ACC instead of the SEC. Oh yeah, that would have really thrown this thing into a whirlwind.
Well, they can thank a former Georgia coach and the Syracuse head coach because Syracuse won. So you're welcome, Dabo.
That's right. That was a great shout out after Syracuse knocks off Miami and knocks them out of the college football playoff.
And knocked them out of the ACC championship game. Mm-hmm. And how about SMU being a team to go into the ACC championship game. Their first year in that conference, and they're playing in the championship game. But before we get there, let's talk another team playing in their first championship game in a new conference. The Longhorns of Texas.
Pretty impressive to make the conference championship your first year there. Speaking to Oregon and Arizona State winning, it was the first time they've ever been there that they won, but Texas comes into what everyone respects as the most dominant conference in college football. There's a couple of homers out there that would argue with us, but most everybody understands that the SEC is the B league of the NFL, and to come out the first year and play an SEC schedule, even though it was one of the weaker SEC schedules, and make the championship game, that says a lot to that program.
I saw something on all the teams that they didn't play. They didn't play Alabama. They didn't play LSU. They didn't play. There was another one that they didn't play. But there's a
Tennessee.
Was it Tennessee? I just know there's like 3 or 4 teams in there from the SEC they didn't play, and it was like they had one of the easiest conference schedules, but
because Tennessee only lost to Alabama and Georgia.
They're bugaboo. Texas is bugaboo.
No. Wait. Tennessee beat Alabama.
Yeah, they lost to Texas.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It was, I think they didn't play Auburn. Auburn, LSU, and Alabama.
I'm pretty sure Texas played Auburn the week before they played A&M.
Maybe they did. But there were a couple of teams that they didn't play.
Well, we're just going to ask the internet who they were.
Yeah, good old Mr. Google.
So they did not play Tennessee.
Okay, so they didn't play Tennessee, they didn't play Alabama, they didn't play LSU.
Yep. They played Mississippi State, Georgia, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, Florida, Kentucky, Arkansas, Georgia again, A&M, Clemson. UTSA. Oh, yeah, they started the season off with Michigan, right?
Yeah. Which everybody thought that was going to be a tough game for them, and turned out, no, Michigan's not Michigan.
Sorry, that was the Sugar Bowl. They started out the season with Colorado State.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Colorado State, yeah.
52-0.
But
then they did play Michigan in the second game of the year. Yeah, and they beat them 31-12, but Michigan's not who we thought they were. Yeah. So they did not play any of the powerhouses except for us, and we beat them twice.
So they're coming off, last time they played Georgia, Georgia didn't play a great game by far on the offensive side, but Tennessee was smacked in the mouth by the defense. Dalen Everett and Jalen Walker, all those guys. I mean, Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning didn't know which way they were going. They couldn't tell their left from their right. But you have Steve Sarkisian as the head coach. He and Kirby Smart both learned on the learning tree of Nick Saban. They're both, from that coaching tree. And here they are. Round 2. The 2 heavyweights, and they're coming out and they're swinging. It's like a Rocky movie, where they're both just throwing haymakers back and forth. And at first, I was like, you know what? It's a problem when a team faces another team for the second time.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was getting very nervous leading up to this game because I was like, oh man, they're gonna do something. They're gonna mess this up some way, somehow, because this is not the Georgia team that we're used to, to just go in there and hit people. But so the game started. We're in Atlanta, Georgia, in the home of the struggling Atlanta Falcons, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And starting for the Texas Longhorns is their star quarterback, Quinn Ewers, who he threw 358 passing yards in this game, so pretty good. But they come out and they're driving. They're throwing deep passes left and right, and then a tipped pass. And it gets tipped up, and Dalen Everett comes down with the interception. So the first drive of the game, it's intercepted. But then Georgia comes out and literally does nothing.
3 and out.
Three plays for 5 yards. Then Texas, once again, they drive down the field. Between the 20s, they were doing whatever they wanted to do. But then they get hit with, and then there's a pass interference on Georgia. And then it stalls. There was a pass interference on Texas that stalled their drive. And it was 3rd and 27, and Burt Auburn, their kicker, who's named after a college, kicks a 41-yard field goal. So they're up 3-0. Georgia does nothing again. 4 plays, 15 yards, punt. Texas gets the ball again. They drive down the field once again, and I think he gets sacked. Yeah, Quinn Ewers got sacked by Chas Chambliss to knock him back. It's 3rd and 14. That takes them to the end of the first quarter. They drive down the field again, keep going. And then there's an offensive holding call. And then a sack by Warren Brinson on Quinn Ewers. And that leads to another 42-yard field goal. Georgia gets the ball again. And they are driving down the field. This is their best drive so far. It starts off with Etienne rushing for 2 yards and a offsides penalty on Texas. Then Carson Beck pass complete to Ben Yurosek for 19 yards to the Texas 49 for a first down. Trevor Etienne runs for 8 yards. Then Carson Beck makes a nice little pass to Oscar Delp for 10 yards to the Texas 31. Have you seen a trend? They're all going to the tight end.
They catch the ball.
Yeah. Nate Frazier run for 5 yards to the Texas 26. Carson Beck, incomplete pass by Arian Smith, who couldn't catch it. And then Peyton Woodring, 44-yard field goal. And that makes it 6-3. And then Texas would drive down and they would miss a field goal, which that turned out to be big later on. Georgia gets the ball back. 3 plays for 4 yards and a punt. Texas gets the ball back. 7 plays, 16 yards and a punt. And then the final drive of the game, which had one of the weirdest, craziest last plays of a half to end a football game. So first, Carson Beck throws an interception, but there's a pass interference call on Texas, so it's 15 yards. 1st and 10 on Texas 47. Carson Beck's pass for Dominic Lovett intercepted. But wait, it was a offside penalty on Texas, 5 yards. And then 1st and 5 at the Texas 42. Carson Beck goes back to pass, and he's getting ready to launch it deep. Trey Moore, he comes around the corner, hits him as he's throwing the ball, hits him in the elbow for a loss of 15 yards. Beck fumbled the ball, and then they try to do this. Texas gets the ball, and they try to do this lateral thing, and they end up throwing it right into the Georgia lineman's hands, and he just falls on it. So that ends the first half, and then a happening happens after halftime.
Stockton time.
The pride of Rabun County, number 14, Gunnar Stockton comes in for an injured Carson Beck. And let's just say that this was a different team coming out of the locker room for Gunnar Stockton. Everything looked different in the second half. Trevor Etienne was running like a man on a mission. Receivers were catching the ball. The ball coming out of Stockton's hand, it was the tightest spirals. There were a lot of short yardage passes, but they were tight. They weren't. Sometimes Carson Beck can throw some wobbler, especially mid to short range. Gunnar Stockton was on there. RPOs, quarterback runs. There's one play where he's running for the first down. It's only like a little 3 or 4 yard scamper, and he runs. It's a he's looking to pass. He finally runs it, and they hit him in the legs, and he pops right back up and first down.
That's right.
But this drive coming out of the at halftime, they started off with a Trevor Etienne 8-yard run, incomplete pass, and then Gunnar Stockton passes it to Arian Smith for 18 yards. Then a 2-yard run by Etienne. Nate Frazier 7-yard run. Gunnar Stockton run for 3 yards to the Texas 37 for first down. That's the play I was talking about. Gunnar Stockton passed complete to Dominic Levitt for 4 yards. Then Gunnar Stockton passed complete to Lawson Lucky for 14 yards. That was an incredible catch. He throws it on the sideline, and Stockton's throwing it to where no one but Lawson Lucky can catch that ball. And Lawson Lucky's a tall guy. He goes up, catches it, and is able to get his 1 foot in as the rest of his body is out of bounds. How he did that? Like, where was this the rest of the year? Where was this?
I don't know, but it was incredible.
And then after that, that sets him up on the 19-yard line. Gunnar Stockton runs for 9 yards to the Texas 10. And then it's Trevor Etienne for a 10-yard run for a touchdown. And you feel the momentum starting to swing. Because then Texas would get the ball back. They would punt, then a punt, and then Texas missed a field goal. And then there's a 9-play, 61-yard drive that Georgia had for a field goal. And then it was a 5-play, 75-yard touchdown pass, or ended with a 41-yard touchdown pass from Quinn Ewers to DeAndre Moore. Georgia would follow it up with a 16-play, 72-yard drive. Listen to these plays in yards. I mean, they're driving down the field methodically at this point with Gunnar Stockton. And that led to a Peyton Woodring 21-yard field goal, and then Dalen Everett gets an interception off of Quinn Ewers. But then Gunnar Stockton turns around and throws one himself, intercepted by Jade Barron. And he returned it for 17 yards to the Texas 34, which set up a game-tying field goal for Texas as they drove down the field, tying it up at 16. And then overtime.
The first one in SEC championship history.
In overtime, it was, they had Texas gets the ball first. They have kind of a prolonged drive. It stalls out. They kick a 32-yard field goal. That sets the tone for Georgia in one of the greatest drives in Georgia history. It's not that long. It's 6 plays for 25 yards, but it starts out with Gunnar Stockton with a pass to Oscar Delp for 9 yards to the Texas 16. Then Gunnar Stockton passed complete to Dominic Levitt for a loss of 2 yards to the Texas 18, getting a little too pretty there. Gunnar Stockton passed complete to Oscar Delp for 4 yards to the Texas 14 for a first down. Trevor Etienne run for 2 yards to the Texas 12. And then Gunnar Stockton on a designed run. He ran for 9 yards to the Texas 4, but he gets hammered. He gets hit by a car. And it was a clean hit. At first, it didn't look like it, but when you look at the replays, he got shellacked. His helmet comes off, but he pops right back up. But due to the rules in college, if your helmet falls off, you have to sit out at least one snap. So, what's Kirby Smart going to do? He's going to go to his third-string quarterback, Ryan Puglisi, right?
Sure.
You would think so.
You would.
But he hears Mike Bobo say, hey, coach, Beck, he can take the snap. We got a play drawn up. It's going to turn out really good. And he turned to his quarterback and said, can you handle that, son? Yes, coach. He goes on in, his arm dangling to his side, hanging down like a limp spaghetti noodle. Everybody in the stand starts to murmur. They start to stir. They show his mama on the big board with a tear in her eye, watching her little baby boy about to do a miracle. And that it's Christmas season, and it's the season of miracles. He gets down, and that's that crouch behind the center. And he goes, hands the ball off to Trevor Etienne. And he scoots on in 4 yards. Touchdown, Georgia, because these dogs don't die. They are the 2024 SEC champions.
Woo! How about them dogs, because they're bad, don't they?
And Carson Beck walks off the field holding his elbow, saying it's bad. It's bad. But you know what, Carson? You won it. You won it. And one of the gutsiest plays I've seen in a long time.
About 75 100,000 people in that stadium knew what was about to happen, and Texas still couldn't stop it.
Texas knew it was going to happen. They knew they were going to run the ball. I mean, you're not going to have a quarterback with a hurt throwing arm going to throw the ball unless he's ambidextrous.
His arm hurt so bad, he was limping.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, his leg wasn't even messed up. His arm literally hurt so bad he was limping.
He was coming on the field limping. But what got me was when they showed his mama on the field, I was like, well, actually, she's a good-looking woman. How'd you end up so goofy? He must look like his daddy.
Mercy's sake.
But anyways, he comes back on that field. They show his mama crying and everything, But you could tell that was a proud moment for her, that her son is showing some gusto.
Some grit.
I mean,
some gumption.
It reminds me of Matthew Stafford in the NFL, his rookie year, when he gets hit and and they say, stay on, and then he throws that pass and he's just like, it's out, and he throws it and falls to the ground. He throws a touchdown pass, but his shoulder's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Carson Beck comes in and gets the handoff. And there's Texas fans out there that are crying foul. That play shouldn't have counted because we put an injured player in the game.
Are you kidding me?
A player that was taken out of the game for injury. He shouldn't have been able to be designated to come back in the game.
When has that ever been a rule?
I don't know, but these Texas fans are screaming. I was like, this ain't baseball.
And you know what? You guys threw trash on the field, so shut up. Y'all don't get a say-so.
It's like, this ain't baseball.
Y'all broke one of the golden rules.
Well, once a player comes out of a game, he can go back in. You can rotate players in and out.
It happens. People go out for concussion protocols all the time, miss entire quarters. Sometimes there's a line at the MRI machine, all right?
Sometimes they only miss a play and they're back in.
Yeah, I don't want to hear that crap. We've seen Matthew Stafford go in with broke fingers and dislocated shoulders and throw touchdowns with them. I don't want to hear that.
So, I mean, they're grasping at straws. You made the playoffs.
Yeah, you're in there. You got a pretty easy route, too.
So, your whole opinion on I know I went through that whole spiel, but your whole opinion on the SEC championship game.
I think it'll go down as one of the greatest of all time. Not only was it the first ever overtime game, which is really hard to wrap my mind around, but Chris Fowler said it several times at the end of the broadcast. I Googled it, and it is, according to the history books, the first ever overtime game in SEC championship history. It was two powerhouses. Clearly the two best teams in the conference because, like you said at the beginning of the show, after their realignment, there is no east, west, north, south. There's no two columns. It's the two best teams, and they play each other, and that winner is the champion. And sometimes it does get a little complicated at the end of seasons when, we're tearing each other apart, and there's a bunch of 2-loss or bunch of 3-loss teams and only one 1-loss team, etc. But it just goes to show it's extremely hard to play in the SEC during conference season. Every week, week in and week out, it's hard to travel. Vanderbilt beat Alabama at home. You can talk about DeBoer if you want. You can say coach this and coach that, and there's trap games and this. Any given Saturday in the SEC, you can walk out on that field and get punched in the mouth so hard you can't get back up.
So this game had everything you'd want in it. It had passing touchdowns. It had rushing touchdowns. It had
defense.
A defense. I mean, they sacked Quinn Ewers 6 times. You had a player get hit. You had a quarterback get injured. A backup came in. You had a fake punt. Drew Bobo has a higher quarterback rating than his daddy did, Mike Bobo, and I thought it was funny Kirby Smart mentioned that. But that was a great design play on a fake punt, and you're giving it to your fastest guy, Arian Smith, and he held on to the ball miraculously. But
it's impressive the way that we found a way to win in situations. You can't win the game in the first quarter, but you can win the first quarter.
And this team that came out for Gunnar Stockton was a totally different team that came out to play for Carson Beck. Carson Beck doesn't get hurt, I don't think Georgia wins this game.
I agree.
I just don't see it. They didn't have the oomph in this game. And then he goes down, and it gives him something to fight for.
Yeah. There's a lot of broadcasters that talk about, even especially color analysts and former players who talk about when your leader goes down and their backup has been the mold of a backup. They've been attentive. They've participated in practice. They're always there. They watch film, and they're able to be an A1, B1 model of the starter. When they come in and they're carrying the torch and they don't make it about themselves and they work hard, the rest of the team finds that extra grit and goes, not only do we have to do our job like we normally do, but we got to step up that extra mile because this is not our gifted quarterback who's got all this experience and God-given talent. This is the guy who's next on the totem pole.
Now, they did play conservative.
They did. They didn't let him sling it.
And they're not going to win a national championship playing conservative with Gunnar Stockton. They're going to have to let him sling the ball because that boy has an arm, and he's accurate. He's accurate deep. He's more accurate deep than Carson is.
Yes.
And he's a little bit more talented when it comes to running the ball and throwing on the run, and he does a lot of stuff that Carson Beck doesn't do. And for Texas, you didn't come into this game prepared for Gunnar Stockton. You came into this game prepared for Carson Beck. And it kind of threw him off. But this is kind of the trick that Texas has been playing on teams all year long with the Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. Arch Manning is your RPO quarterback. Quinn Ewers is your stay in the pocket, throw it down the field guy. Arch can throw the ball too, but Arch and Gunnar Stockton are very similar in the way that they play. And that's probably the reason why Arch didn't come to Georgia, because he was like, well, they got a twin mold of me and Gunnar Stockton.
Yeah.
And I feel that was another downfall for Texas, was they weren't prepared for Gunnar Stockton. They were prepared for Carson Beck.
Yep, for 4 quarters. And we've seen it happen as Georgia fans. We've seen the Tua Jalen Hurts switch and then the Jalen Hurts Tua switch. We've seen them both. It's hard to prepare for somebody mid-game you don't have any film on. Situational football is hard to prepare for when it's something you would never think would happen.
And this was not a Kirby Smart coaching decision. This was I have to bring in my backup quarterback.
Yep.
And Kirby Smart said at the end when they said, did you have faith in your backup quarterback being able to lead? And he's like, he's a winner. He won in high school. He's won everywhere he's been. He's a winner. He knows how to win. He knows the right things to do. And yeah, he threw an interception on, a throw that he was trying to throw out of bounds. But it is what it is. Other than that, everything he was doing, the decisions he was making, it did not look like a sophomore that had been sitting and just playing mop-up duty.
Right.
He looked very poised. He looked like he belonged. And you know what? I hate that Carson Beck got hurt. You never want to see a guy get hurt. And Carson Beck was on fire coming into this Texas game. But things like this happen. Look at what happened to Drew Bledsoe. He goes down, Tom Brady comes in. Not saying that Gunnar Stockton's Tom Brady. I'm just saying, when your opportunity comes once in a lifetime, and I'm not trying to quote the song, but when your opportunity comes, you need to grab the Longhorns by the horns and take advantage of that situation. And Gunnar Stockton showed us enough to say, okay, this kid is special.
Yeah, I mean, Dog Nation rallied around him, and they're going to continue to. He's a damn good dog. He's from this neck of the woods. He knows the traditions. He understands what's at stake. And come January 1st, we'll see what he's made of for 4 quarters.
He's a good old farm boy from Rabun County.
That's right. And being from around here, I got to see some cute posts that were pretty funny yesterday morning. Like, people posted his middle school yearbook photo, and like, that's my quarterback. And he's got the swoosh haircut and all that jazz. But what I wanted to say about him when he came in the game, I've watched him play since he was a kid, and when he got behind the center and backed up into shotgun, it looked like Bill Romanowski was playing quarterback, and when he threw it, it looked like Bo Jackson from center field.
He's built a lot like Haynes King,
but bigger,
but broader in the shoulders. And that's what made that hit against him that much more unbelievable. It was like, you just hit a 220-pound quarterback, but he caught him off guard.
And the other guy had him wrapped up already. Like, he was going down. That guy teed off on a – that's why I don't understand why it wasn't a targeting call, because there was a defender that had him wrapped up.
They were looking at helmet to helmet is what they were looking at. And, his shoulder hit him in the helmet, but he was lowering the shoulder to put the boom in. They were trying to get Puglisi in that game.
Yeah, no kidding. They wanted to see all our quarterbacks.
But one more thing that I want to touch on is where in the world has this Trevor Etienne been all season long?
Only thing that I can say is maybe injuries, but I'm glad he's here now when it matters.
Well, Kirby Smart said that in the locker room, he told people the reason why he came to Georgia was for this game, to be an SEC champion. He said, Trevor Etienne said, man, I mentioned the Las Vegas Bowl to these boys, and they looked at me like I was funny. They laughed at me. I came here to play in the SEC championship. I came here to win a national championship. That's the whole reason why I transferred to Georgia in the first place. And he played like it. Mm-hmm. Like Kirby Smart said, no disrespect to Dalen Everett because he played one heck of a game, but in his mind, Trevor Etienne was the MVP of that game.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I think that Georgia's first-round bye is huge. We, as Georgia fans, I think I speak for us all when I say I was nervous about having to play in the first round and having an extra game added to our schedule, not knowing who we might be up against. We would not be playing Clemson. We would most likely have to play Ohio State at Ohio State. So I'm glad that we ended up in the predicament that we ended up in. But just kind of breaking down the bracket in the first round, it's the way it looks, the way they lay it out on the internet, it looks like each of the bye weeks, those teams have their own little bracket that connects to them, and then it moves on past that.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Your number one team, Oregon, its little bracket, the winner of the Ohio State-Tennessee game on December 21st at 8 o'clock, will play Oregon on New Year's Day at 5 p.m. in the Rose Bowl. So we're going to see some stuff. We're going to see an SEC team go up and probably play in the snow.
So Tennessee, Ohio State is going to be at Ohio State.
Yep, and Ohio State's favored by 7.5, and the winner of that game will play Oregon. Now, the number 2 is going to be the winner of Indiana-Notre Dame at South Bend. So Indiana is no stranger to the cold. So they both should be pretty evenly matched.
This is the battle of the state of Indiana, pretty much.
Yep.
I mean, both teams play in Indiana. Obviously, Indiana does, and Notre Dame plays in South Bend. This is going to be next Friday, 8 p.m. It's going to be at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is 7.5-point favorites.
Then you've got your number 3 seed, which is Boise State. The winner of the Penn State SMU game that will be the 21st at noon on TNT.
This is what the college football playoff was created for, a team like SMU.
Exactly. And they're 11th. And they could have won. We were talking about earlier teams for the first time in a conference making it all the way to the conference title. They played Clemson for the title, kind of got bullied around in the first half, made a second half comeback, only lost by 3. Because they played that game like that and were ranked higher than Clemson going in, Alabama's out. And SMU and Clemson are in. And that's kind of the justification.
How many toothless rednecks are mad right now down there in Alabama?
Probably just as many toothful rednecks down there in Alabama. Probably all of them. I imagine.
Except for the Auburn fans.
Yeah, I'm
in
sure.
Alabama.
I'm sure they're happy about it. But Boise State wins its conference championship 21-7 over UNLV, and they'll play the winner of Penn State SMU. Penn State's a 9-point favorite. It's at Penn State, so
that's a team from Texas going to play in Pennsylvania on December 21st.
Just a few days before Christmas. That's going to be cold.
Yes, and yeah.
And then finally, your number 4 team with a bye is Arizona State because they won their conference.
Good to see that.
I'm happy to see that too. They beat Iowa State for the title in Pac-12. Is that right? Pac-12, yeah, because they left the Sun Belt. And the winner of the Clemson-Texas game will play Arizona State. So Texas probably going to have the best weather out of all these other games.
They're an 11-point favorite over Clemson.
And at home, they should be.
Yeah.
Clemson's going to have to go in and prove some stuff.
I mean, Penn State's only a 9-point favorite over SMU, so I think that's the biggest spread out of these first-round games. Yeah, it is. It's
the Texas-Clemson game.
Yeah.
Which the rankings would also speak to that, 5 versus 12.
Okay, let's make some predictions. Let's go Clemson, Texas.
I have Texas beating Clemson and playing Arizona State in the Peach Bowl.
I do too. Tennessee, Ohio State.
I have Tennessee going up and absolutely slapping the taste out of Ohio State's mouth and then going to the Rose Bowl to play Oregon.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that because I was going to be funny and just say that Tennessee was going to win just because we don't like Ryan Day and I want Urban Meyer to get his job back. Because that's apparently a rumor going around that he's looking to get back into the game there. Tennessee's going to beat Ohio State. Ohio State doesn't have enough. They were the worst number 2 team almost all season long. Tennessee and Oregon, and then SMU, Penn State.
As much of a Cinderella story as SMU has been, they do not have the firepower. After I watched Penn State in that conference championship against Oregon, and their defense really didn't show up, but their offense put 30-plus on the board. SMU don't have a chance. That should be the 11-point spread.
The only thing I think that SMU has going for it is their quarterback and the speed. Oregon doesn't have speed like that. Georgia don't have speed like that. They are the fastest team in this college football bracket. Maybe Notre Dame's right behind them in speed, but they have speed. But yeah, they're gonna get stomped by Penn State. It's gonna be ugly. It's probably gonna be a 2-touchdown decimation of SMU.
I agree.
And then Indiana, Notre Dame. I think everybody knows who I'm picking.
I think I know who you're picking, and it's a good pick. And I think since it's so close to home, the Indiana will travel well, and that will not give Notre Dame a very large advantage on home field advantage like it will the other 3 teams. So Indiana is going to get an even playing field close to home. So this, in my opinion, is the most evenly matched game in the first round.
You're going into Notre Dame, and that is a hard stadium to play in. It's a loud stadium to play in.
That's true, and I'm not even.
You're going up against Riley Leonard and the 3-headed monster of running backs that they have in Notre Dame. You're going up against a top 5 defense in Notre Dame. This is going to be a tough game for a Cinderella Indiana team who proven that they are for real, much like SMU, but they're still a Cinderella team.
Yeah, and what I was getting at is Notre Dame the defense is going to be too much. Defense is going to be too much. Notre Dame wins that game. Even if Indiana plays really good on defense,
I think it's
Notre Dame can execute.
I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. 7.5. Maybe Notre Dame does win by a touchdown or maybe by 10 points. But
I think it's a 28-24 game, Notre Dame. I think Indiana can't win with a field goal. They have to score.
And Notre Dame's offense
can't.
They can score quick, but they like to control the clock, and they like to control. So Indiana's offense is going to have to score quick, and they're going to have to score fast, and I just don't see them doing that against Notre Dame.
They haven't done it very often against anybody.
So, because Notre Dame's going to get the ball, and they're going to run. They're going to run. Riley Leonard's going to throw a little short Tom Brady, little 5-yard out passes, and he's going to tuck it down and run.
Yep, sticks and slants.
And they're just going to control the clock, and they're going to beat you, and then they're going to hit you in the mouth with their defense. So that would set up a quarterfinal of Arizona State and Texas. Who do you like in that one?
In the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Arizona State versus Texas. All right, here's the deal. Arizona State is the hot team right now. They scored a lot of points in their conference championship, and they beat their opponent by a lot to prove a point. I think that they earned that 4 spot, and I think that they give Texas a run for their money. But I think in the end, Coach Stark's offensive game plan is just too much, and nobody no one at Arizona State comes from the Nick Saban coaching tree.
Yep.
So I think the fourth quarter stretch is going to be too much for Arizona, and Texas wins by almost 2 touchdowns because they get up and then they score one late big to make it, like 41.
I think what ends up
27.
I think what ends up happening is I think this is going to be an evenly matched game till the fourth quarter.
Yep.
And I think what's going to end up happening is Texas is going to drive down the field and they're going to pull something out of their hat. They're going to pull maybe like a flea flicker or some type of
Wisner to Ewers on the Philly special.
Yeah, something like that. Or they bring in Arch Manning and he does something crazy like they throw it between his legs to get a first down like they did against Georgia. Or they do something like that that's going to give them the advantage.
RPO, play action.
Yeah, and they're gonna win they're gonna get a game-winning touchdown with just a few seconds left and not enough for Arizona State to come back on offense. That's the way I see it.
I could see that too. I think Arizona State loses at the coaching level in that game. I think that the players on the field are going to be pretty evenly matched and anything can happen. But I think Texas edges out Arizona State simply based on their coaching staff.
Oregon and Tennessee at the Rose Bowl. Out in California.
Oh, Pasadena, huh?
Yep, Pasadena.
It's going to be a 5 p.m. game, so that means it's going to be a sunset game. I wonder if that's 5 p.m. Eastern or 5 p.m.
It's
local.
Eastern, so it'll be 2 o'clock out there.
So that's the hottest. Let me tell you something about the Rose Bowl that you know because you've been there.
Yeah.
For our listeners who have never been to Pasadena, California, especially in December or January, at 2 p.m., it feels in direct sunlight like it's 95 degrees.
Let me tell you about the Rose Bowl. You drive through a subdivision, or you drive through these neighborhoods, and all of a sudden you come to this field, and down in this field is this stadium, and it's built kind of in a field, but up on a hill a little bit. And the sun, and the way it's shaped, it's almost like the LA Coliseum, where it's just a lot of open. It's designed almost like a high school stadium in a sense, where there's not these big walls and kind of like the cookie cutters where it comes over to give you shade. There's no shade. It's all hot and it's all sun, and it will burn you up, boy.
And then about the time you're soaking wet from sweat, the sun goes down below the mountains, the Angeles Mountains back there, and it's cold. It's freezing cold outside. And it's awful. It's terrible. I hate it. I've never been so cold in my life as when I went to the Georgia-Oklahoma game in 2018.
For people that don't know, Pasadena is in between L.A. and not quite San Francisco, but more around the Stanford, like where Stanford University would be. So like maybe like closer to like San Jose. It's in between.
San Bernardino.
Yeah, it's between those two areas. It's where UCLA plays their home games. So. And it's weird because they get some of the worst weather when it comes to hot and cold. It's so crazy.
So Oregon and Tennessee in the Rose Bowl.
This is the
I got
matchup.
Oregon.
I have Oregon too. I think Tennessee's going to give them a run for their money, but I think it's one of those things where it's going to be close in the first half, but then Oregon comes out, they make the adjustments. Dan Lanning's going to have his boys ready to go in the second half. And then after that, Oregon pulls away. It's going to be like a 2-touchdown win.
51-42 Oregon.
Yeah.
I think that Tennessee comes to play. I think Hupel does a good job getting everybody prepared. The SEC travels. Yeah, the SEC travels well. And I think that Oregon comes out, and I think they're just too much down the stretch. Dylan Gabriel, most college football snaps by a quarterback in college football history now. He's passed everybody else.
Heisman Trophy winner this year.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. I think that the player from our next game, Penn State versus Boise State, I think that maybe is the running back at me, but I think that the running back from Boise State, Genty, should be the Heisman Trophy winner. He has gotten those numbers that he's got in 3 quarters and then gone and sat down.
You know they want to draft him as a wide receiver though. The NFL's looking at him more as a wide receiver than a running back.
The NFL's also looking at losing a bunch of revenue to college football because they don't know how to do it right.
Yeah. So I can't really call it an upset because they're ranked higher, but in the minds of college football fans, it would be an upset. I have Boise State going over Penn State.
So you got the Fiesta Bowl Penn State over Boise. I'm going to take Boise State right here. I'm going to take Boise State over Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl, 24-21 Boise State.
I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think Boise State is too much on offense for Penn State. And now, the matchup we've all been waiting for. A rematch. These teams have faced each other before. Georgia, in the last 5 years, is up, 6 years, up 2-0 against them. Mm-hmm. They played one in Georgia, one in Notre Dame. Georgia won both of them. Georgia and Notre Dame. This is going to be, I think, the dogfight game. And it's not, I'm not saying a dogfight from the standards of it's necessarily going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a hard hitting in your mouth, every point matters game. Like, you're going to have to earn everything you get.
Absolutely.
I think Georgia still wins by 10, but when these two teams play each other, and the teams that Georgia played were the Brian Kelly-led Notre Dame teams, and they're not as talented as this Notre Dame team is, at least from a defensive standpoint. And Georgia is going to probably run in. This is the toughest defense that Georgia's going to face all year long, other than maybe Texas's defense. I still like Georgia winning 34-24. I think Notre Dame's going to be able to score on Georgia, but I think that Georgia's going to have enough plus plays, enough turnovers, 1 or 2 turnovers, they'll be able to get the ball back.
I agree. I think Riley Leonard panics at some point and makes an errant throw, probably around Dominic Lovick or Malachi Starks on the far side of the field. I've seen Riley make some silly throws running away from pressure and trying to throw across his body.
And everybody talks about the Notre Dame O-line. There's one way to get past an O-line. You can blitz your corners.
Yep.
And Dalen Everett, he will get past a tight end, and
he almost put Quinn Ewers in a coffin.
Yeah.
I mean, when he hit him, it looked like Quinn Ewers could have just fell on 6 feet into the ground and just been done.
So I have Georgia winning in the Sugar Bowl.
I do too.
In Nolans.
By 10. Dogs by 50.
I like 34-24.
That's good score.
I mean, it could also be 27-17 or something like that. And then that would set up the 2 semifinal games as what do we have? We have Texas and
Oregon.
Oh, Oregon.
Texas, Oregon.
I got Oregon going over Texas. They're not gonna be able to stop
Gabriel.
Dylan Gabriel and that Oregon train. And then Georgia and Boise State. And Boise State, I'm sorry, Genty's not gonna be enough for Boise State, and they're gonna hit that boy hard.
Yep.
He's gonna run into Dan Jackson and not know what hit him, because Boise State ain't faced nothing like Georgia at this point. And that's going to set up a final of Oregon and Georgia.
And that's what we said preseason anyway.
Yep. And and we're homers, so we're going to say, go Dogs.
Go Dogs, told you. And Dan Lanning, much respect out to him, man. He's done a great job in Oregon. He was an excellent defensive coordinator at Georgia, a couple national championship rings.
He had the greatest defense of all time in NCAA history. That 21, what was it? That 21 team?
Yes, sir.
They records of not allowing touchdowns and yardage allowed and turnovers. They set records, son.
And number of players drafted off the defensive side of the ball in the first round from one college.
And sorry, but not sorry that we're homers, but there's really no dominant team in college football this year. I mean, not even Georgia's a dominant team. They're a flawed team. But they're the one team that can step it up. And they're the one team that's been there before who knows the stakes. Oregon's had their moments. They've played in the college football playoff. But they know Georgia knows what they're playing for.
I would also like to point out that the college football national championship is on my wedding anniversary. When the old system, college football was over by the time I got married, and now I'm going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life.
And you're going to be on a cruise ship?
I'm probably going to be on a cruise ship. No, I don't leave until the 24th. So I'm just going to have to hear it from my wife.
So you're either going to be in a good mood or a bad mood on the cruise.
Yeah. I'm going to be in a good mood. Ain't nothing to take me out of a good mood out in the middle of nowhere on that boat. I love it out there.
Yeah, because you'll forget about the Dawgs till you come back to Georgia.
Amen. My concern is I do know that we've got a good defense. I do know we've got some legacy players and legendary players, and we've got some great things going with this team. We're not the 2021 Dogs for sure, but Boise State does concern me. We've gotten the ball ran on us this year. We've had games where we could not stop the run. I know we just played great against Texas. We game planned well. Kirby Smart is one of those coaches that is the anomaly. He does do a good job of playing a team.
He let Texas.
Twice.
He said, "You can have all these fancy passing yards, but y'all ain't gonna do nothing on the ground."
Blue and Windsor couldn't run the ball to save their lives. I don't know if we can reproduce that week in and week out because we barely stopped UMass.
Well, Georgia is one of the better red zone defenses in football.
We got a good red zone defense. That's true. As long as we don't give up the big play, we don't give up a lot of points. But that's how we lost the Alabama game, is the big play.
Here's the thing. They got 2 weeks. They got 2 weeks to rest, get ready, and they're going to have some players returning on the defense. They're going to have some players returning on the offense. But the one player that ain't going to be returning is Carson Beck. They said a torn UCL, your elbow.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happens to a baseball player, that's Tommy John surgery. And for those of you who don't know, that's a whole year to come back.
So technically all of these college football teams get a bye. Nobody plays football from.
Oh yeah, because Army Navy's this weekend.
Yep.
So it'll be 3 weeks for Georgia.
Yeah. So nobody plays on the 14th, but Army Navy, and then on the 21st you'll have your first round of college football playoffs. Then there is a bye week. Nobody plays on the 28th, 29th, or 30th. So you get almost 10 days after you play your first round bye. So it's padded. These kids are not playing Sunday night and then having to play a Thursday night college football game.
And you have all the 38 other bowl games going on, too, at the time. So, but you want to put a bow on this great episode of winning?
Yeah, the college football national championship bracket has started. Cory and I have our picks in. Go Dogs. That's your little rundown for the last 2 games of the season. We beat Georgia Tech in an 8 overtime thriller, 44-42. Then we made the SEC championship, beating Texas 22-19. Was not a lopsided game. Carson Beck's out. Gunnar Stockton's in. We've got a break until the first of the year where we will play the winner of Notre Dame, Indiana. That game is on December 20th at 8 p.m. on ABC ESPN. You can find It's Just the Show wherever podcasts are available.
I have one more thing for the rest of college football. Just remember, there's nothing funner than watching Gunner.
How about them Dogs? Because they bad, don't they? We'll catch you guys next time on It's Just the Show.